Hi, I'm Kevin Keelen, and I'm a bereavement support specialist. I work at Stephy's Place Center for Grief and Loss in Red Bank, New Jersey. I've been there for about 7 years, but I've been doing grief work, for lack of a better word, for about 30 years now in different capacities. But it's my own losses in particular that bring me to do this work, to walk with people who are grieving. I lost my sister and my nephew to suicide, which rocked my world and my family's world for sure. So I do understand this particular loss on a personal level. It's when we get people together to talk about this loss that seems to be most helpful in their healing process. We have support groups in which we get people to talk about their loss, to talk about suicide, and it's amazing how helpful it can be. Our society and our culture does not handle grief or death, and particularly suicide, very well. So there's very few places we can talk about this. But having conversations about it can be very healing. Talking about our loss helps us to get it from inside to the outside. Grief is all of those feelings, the questions, the emotions, the confusion that are inside of us. And it can get bigger and bigger until we have the opportunity to talk to someone about it. Someone who doesn't want to fix us, someone who doesn't want to heal us, but someone who's just willing to walk with us. And talking to someone else who has experienced this loss can be most helpful. That's what we have found in our groups for loss to suicide. Getting people together to have conversations, to simply talk about this loss and the healing process can be the most helpful thing in their lives. I hope hearing these conversations will be helpful to you in some way. Thank you. I just would like to go back to when we first met a little bit, in those early days. But before we do that, I would love for everyone who's watching this to hear about Pierce and for you guys to share about your beloved son, Pierce.
Our Pierce Charming, as we called him. He was a light. He had the greatest sense of humor. He was so easygoing, happy-go-lucky, even-keeled, even-tempered, the most loving and, I would say, dedicated friend, brother, son. He loved his friends and family. He always wanted to make people laugh, always. Whenever there was a tension or a situation, he could make everybody laugh. Everything, even when just picking him up from school, a day of school, he would always get in the car and make me laugh. He was so funny, and he just loved life. He was an incredible athlete, a dedicated teammate. Loved being with his friends. He loved to have fun. He always wanted to have a good time. One thing that always sticks out to me too is his evenness. Whenever there was possible drama in the family of two older sisters and us, he just would always just shake his head.
No, he wouldn't. He would say good night.
Yeah. He could just go with the flow. He was very go with the flow.
Yeah.
But maybe you could add.
Yeah, we could add a lot. Pierce, ironically, was full of life.
Yeah.
He was a great kid. He loved the outdoors. He loved anything sports related. He loved his friends. He loved his sisters. I thought he was my best friend. He just was an amazing kid. An amazing kid in so many different angles, too. He would be the kid that would comfort his friends or lead them in laughter or listen to his friends or tell a story. He was a dynamic kid. He just really, really enjoyed people.
He was 16, right?
He was 16, yes.
Yeah.
Apparently really very athletic. What was his favorite sport? Was it lacrosse?
Yeah, he played a bunch of sports growing up. all the kids tried their sports, and Pierce, he tried baseball, soccer, but he really gravitated towards lacrosse. That was really where he excelled.
He would have played lacrosse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
loved it.
Loved
and he
it.
would do anything for it and for any team. And he was good at it. It came naturally to him. And he worked hard at it too. He really worked hard.
And I think his other big passion was surfing.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a surfer? I didn't know.
Yeah, he loved surfing.
He was
He and I spent a lot of time out in the lineup, and it was
Oh, you,
fun.
you surf too? You surf with
Well, I paddle out with him.
he was surfing since he was 6
Yeah.
years old.
them? Wow.
Yeah.
And
It was a
just
big passion of
by
his.
the time he was 10, I can remember
Yeah.
him dragging me to the beaches and the waves, even in freezing cold weather.
Yeah.
He still wanted to go out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it was fun. That's where he and I spent, and the girls too would surf, but we spent a lot of time out there and
Yeah.
had good conversations. It was good father-son time.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. It reminds me of like when our groups first meet, when our grief groups gather, I sometimes tell people I'm giving surfing lessons because, and I've never been on a surfboard, as you know, but I like to say that because of the waves, right? The grief comes in waves. And in the beginning, the storm is raging and the waves are relentless. The waves are gonna come. And it's, sometimes they knock us down, but we can always get back up again.
It's a great metaphor.
And I also there were so many proud moments, but it's hard because sometimes I wonder if it played into what happened with him. But he was cut from a lacrosse team that he loved dearly, and he was so upset, and he just thought, I'm not going to play anymore. It's over. But then I remember we said, you can do whatever you need to do. You have to figure out what you want and go get it. If you want whatever you want, if you want to keep playing lacrosse, then it's important that you try out for another team and just get back on the horse, so to speak. And we left it to him, and he did it all by himself.
Wow.
He gave himself a couple days, and then he started to reach out to people, and he was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm okay. He seemingly was okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did you notice any struggle with him at all? Any signs?
No, zero signs.
Wow.
Zero
No,
signs.
not outwardly, no.
Not outwardly. Yeah.
No.
I mean, it just wasn't apparent. We just and we would have conversations with him too. We would ask him probably the incorrect way
Yes,
that we've learned after the fact.
That's
But we
true.
would ask him, "Are you okay? Is everything good?" There's different ways to ask that question to somebody that's struggling that we've learned now.
Yeah.
But at the time, we in our education that we had, we thought it was the right way to ask. We were checking in. We were keeping the dialogue going, and everything seemed fine.
Right.
But what we also talked about afterwards is that we think that Pierce was one of these kids that just internalized a lot. So he would absorb the pain, his friend that he went to see whose parent died from cancer, and he would internalize a lot of that without releasing it or expressing it.
Wow.
And I think that might have added to his struggle that we didn't know he was having.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah. I mean, he had struggles, but they didn't seem any more
Yeah.
serious than
just
than
a normal
typical
16,
16-year-old
15,
kid.
14-year-old kid,
16-year-old,
Like
yeah.
there's a girl problem, there's a problem with getting on a lacrosse team, I'm struggling with a subject in school.
Homework, yeah.
Just normal teenage
Sure.
struggles or things you need
No
have
red
to deal
flags
with.
where
No red
you-
flags.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So why judge yourself? You did check in with him, which is amazing. Particularly, there weren't any red flags. There weren't any signs, but you still had those conversations, which is
Yeah.
Yeah, but to what Pete said, I think this is so important for people moving forward with this sort of struggle. If I detected something was wrong, or that I felt like maybe he wasn't okay, and he voiced it and I'm okay with this now because I didn't know, but I definitely struggled with it in the beginning. Like Pete said, we may not have asked the questions the right way or in a healthy way or in a helpful way. I realize now that as his mother, I think I might have come across, it was kind of about me. Like, you wouldn't hurt yourself, would you? You're okay, right? You know we love you. Like, it was more about like my pain than his pain. And for those who do have people in their lives who struggle, I think it's just really important to, instead of saying you would really hurt me if you did something, you know, or if something were to happen to you, just maybe check in with them in a way saying, it must really stink to feel this way.
And more open-ended questions or dialogue too. Get them talking. Don't just be like, "You're okay, right?" Yes.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today? Tell me how you're feeling today. Have them elaborate or expand on what they're thinking, not just a closed-end question.
It's so interesting. We all kind of do that.
We
You're
do
okay,
that.
right? We
Yeah.
answer the question
Yeah.
for them. We all do it.
We set it up to be a single answer.
Yeah, I always used to say, you know how it would hurt me. You know I could not live without you. And that was about me. That had nothing to do with him, really.
But also, I think, you know, I've talked to people who have had those conversations, and still they hide it well,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, in ways we'll never understand or know.
It will never make sense. Of all the stories I've heard, not one makes sense.
No.
They hide it well, and they may also not be aware of the path they're heading down.
Right.
That's
right.
so
They
true.
might not be able to articulate how they're actually feeling.
Very true. Yeah. For many, I think that's true.
Yeah.
And then it happens.
And then it happens.
Yeah.
I want to go back to when it did happen, when I first met you guys. Truly, you were in your pajamas, weren't you, Lori? Yeah.
I thought I was never getting out.
Before I even met you, though, that time of chaos, and what was most helpful to you? How did you get through those first days?
I don't know. It's all a blur.
Yeah.
Well, we were really different the way we did. So,
Yeah. So Lori found comfort in a blanket, and I found comfort in being the busy bee. Trying to take away everybody's pain, including my own.
There's very little anyone can say or do that's helpful, right? When it first happens, in that raw grief, when it first happens, there's just so little that helps. And I remember you guys actually, someone brought you to our center, and we determined it was just too soon, right? Because when it's too early, nothing helps, right?
Nothing.
Was that your experience?
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I remember when you encouraged us to wait a little while. I was so desperate to feel better. We wanted to come to group so badly that I was a little disappointed, like, oh my gosh. But now, in retrospect, and having been through group and now facilitating a group of my own, I see there's a time in there, in the beginning of grief, at least for me, where no words were just wah wah wah. I couldn't find the wisdom in anyone's words. I couldn't understand what anyone was saying, really.
Right.
And you just kind of, for me, and I think for a lot of people, you kind of have to go through that time of just the pain.
And
There's no way around it.
And there's a certain aspect of our society that you want instant gratification or whatever, and you just want to have that magic drink that's going to help you get through the grief and
Yep.
fast forward you past all this ridiculous pain.
Right.
I
Anything.
mean, we were broken. I was broken.
Oh.
I couldn't think straight. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stay awake. I was
Right.
forgetting things. And you just
exactly
want to
it.
go forward and get past it
But you can't.
so you can live again and worry about the ones you love and take care of things.
Yeah.
And you're torn apart, and there's just no easy solution. And it's just,
But
you know,
just sort of have to be there.
and
for a
everybody
little
had
bit.
said you're going to feel better or there will be a time, but you can't believe it because you're so new and you're so in that spot, that raw spot, and it's just so painful. It's I never imagined it. I mean, we've all experienced loss at some level, a friend or, a friend of a friend, but it's still secondarily when it happens this close. It's unbearable.
Yeah. Shattered. Right?
Shattered,
Yeah.
broken.
That's what the word bereavement means, to be broken in pieces.
Yeah.
Literally. And you were. I saw you both in that.
Yeah.
So to be with you today is really a miracle, because you have both done a lot of hard work in grieving and mourning. You both have. I've watched you, and I think it's amazing how you're healing. It's a healing that's ongoing, never ends.
Never.
We live in the healing, right? There's no end date to this. There's no date where, okay, you're done. But what you're doing, the two of you, I find inspiring. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your now? And well, first, did you go through the woulda, shoulda, couldas? I wanted to touch on that because so many people do.
Are you
Yeah.
kidding?
You're right. Yeah, dumb question.
I mean, I still do.
Yeah. First of all, as being the father to my children, that this happened in my watch, so to speak, just was shattering for me. The guilt behind that. What did I miss? What should we have done? What conversations should we have had? It just was endless for me. You and I have spoken about that, Kevin. The guilt was just overwhelming for me. But I slowly learned, and I slowly got comfortable with that. It really wasn't my fault. There was not much I could do. We were there. We were good parents. We can see that in our other children. But it still doesn't change the fact that initially you're second guessing yourself. You woulda, shoulda, coulda. I mean, to the point where this unfortunately happened when we were out visiting our daughter on a parents' weekend at her college. And before we left, I actually said to Lori, maybe I'll stay behind. Pierce has got some stuff going on with lacrosse at school, and we talked to him, and everything seemed fine, and we decided to both go on the trip. So we were in California. And, after this, I'm like, what if I should have stayed home?
Sure.
What if I stayed home? So there's never ending that. And every now and then it still crops up.
Of course.
It just doesn't go away, but we're in a better spot.
One thing, though, that helped me with that, because I had it, and it still comes up, but I do feel like I've found peace with it. My therapist helped me a lot with this. She said, imagine there was probably 1 million pieces to what happened to Pierce. And we don't know if one of those 1 million pieces was moved. We still don't know the outcome, but there are 1 million pieces. So we can't really say, if I had done this, that the outcome would be differently. If I had done that, the outcome would have been different. We don't know. And I think in a way I have kind of surrendered to that not knowing, and it does give me peace. And in surrendering, it also makes me realize, and what I've learned through this whole grief process is, it's so beyond our control. Like, we want to think that we're in control of it. Like, if we stayed home, or if I said X, Y, and Z to him that day, or if I talked to him one more time on the phone that night. But, like, really, we don't know. And it's not, we have no control over it. We have no idea what's going to happen ever.
And you'll never know, right?
Right.
And you have to live with that. Yeah.
Right. I think we wish we had control, and I think we like to think we have control.
Right.
But we don't. The only thing we have control over is our own actions and our own behavior.
I read that recently about guilt. It's our desire to rewind it and change the outcome. Rewind it so we have control over it, and then change the outcome.
Right.
So the brain keeps going back, right? I would
We
have
have
done
no
this.
control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you finding that easing up a bit for you, or is it still pretty haunting? The woulda, shoulda, coulda.
It's easing up. It's eased up for me a lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. As I said, I still go back there every now and then, but it's eased up.
Yeah,
People
even-
need to hear that with this loss.
Yeah.
Especially with suicide,
Yeah.
because that woulda, shoulda, coulda,
Yeah.
so torturous.
Even when I go back to it, I go back to my learned experience. Now I go back to, I don't know how it would have turned out, and none of it makes sense. So,
And I think to your point of what you just said, I think the guilt makes us all want to go back to change history,
Yeah.
to say this shouldn't have happened. How can I control this? But it's just,
Right.
yeah.
it's beyond what we can control.
Takes a while to get there, though, for that to ease up. It's
Yeah, but it helps to talk about it too, because if you internalize it, then that guilt's going to really fester and not go away.
That's
But
for
to
sure.
talk about it, you can realize that it's not your fault.
You get somebody else outside of your head
Yeah.
and get their feedback,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.